Thumbs is a virtual human model that allows us to put this as a driver or as an occupant or even as a pedestrian in a crash scenario and gives us the opportunity to see how the human body responds in a crash. So I'd like to introduce you to Thumbs and exactly what Thumbs is. Um, and what I'm going to do is just go briefly through what Thumbs is and how we developed it and how we can use it. But I want to jump to the end for an animation to show you a really great application of Thumbs that I think will explain it a little better in the case of the NASCAR study and the high-speed right side impact. So what is Thumbs? Thumbs is a total human model for safety, and I want to emphasize the T is for total, not for Toyota, and that's because we believe so strongly in this that we have made this commercially available since its version 1 release in the year 2000. As to date, I think we have more than 40 plus users worldwide, combining industry and research, and it also includes both occupant models as well as pedestrian. And just a quick overcap of what Thumbs is. It's a virtual human model that details the human anatomy and physiology such that we can simulate it in a dynamic crash environment and have a deeper understanding of what's going on inside the human body in the crash. So here's a summary of how Thumbs was developed. As I mentioned, version 1 was released in 2000. It's been under development at Toyota since 1997. Version 1 was able to predict bone fracture. We then upgraded the model to version 3, which implemented a detailed brain model and gave us the opportunity to understand brain injury in greater detail. And then that brings us to our current version, version 4, which then implements detailed internal organs that allows us a better look at soft tissue injury. And how were we able to develop such a detailed model? Actually, this was through high-resolution CT scanning in collaboration with the University of Michigan of average male size, American male size, and that scans were then digitized to data such that we could collect the geometry and apply it to a finite element environment. And that allowed us to individualize the organs, the bone structure, as well as connective tissue. And this is an example of the level of details in our finite element human model. Detailed skeletal structure, as well as joints, example of the knee joint and its detailed ligaments, muscular structure, detailed brain model, as well as the new implementation of internal organs. And then what this level of detail does then is not only allows us to understand the external loading to an occupant or a pedestrian in a dynamic car crash, but also how the detailed flexible structure of a human, as well as the internal collision that happens with the organs in a crash, how that can lead to different injury mechanisms that might not have been intuitive without a human model. And I'll show you one great application of how we use Thumbs, and this was in collaboration with NASCAR. What we looked at was investigating driver injury and mechanism injury, primarily in a right lateral impact. And what we were able to do with this study, we observed rib fractures in particular cases, and then that allowed us to take it to another level of if we could simulate rib fractures as they were seen on the racetrack, then how can we prevent them? How can we modify a seat structure or improve the injury risk? And here I'm going to show you an animation of one of the conditions. If you could go ahead and play it, please. So here the driver is moving laterally into the seat, and what Thumbs allows us to do is break away, and we can see the details of the bony structure. This study we're primarily focusing on rib fracture, and what we can see is as the chest deforms based on the loading and deformation of the seat, that's something that wasn't quite intuitive until we applied a human model, how the chest deforms, and it turns out that's quite critical in the load distribution. We can then turn on injury criteria that helps us judge rib fracture. In this case, it's strain of the cortical bone. As the driver moves into the seat, we'll see thumbs, okay, right there, you can pause it. Thumbs actually predicts rib fracture in the posterior lateral portion in this particular case. And that's just an example of how we can use thumbs in its dynamic simulation. I'd love to explain it in more detail in regards to this case or thumbs development or its applications otherwise at the back table. I want to acknowledge some of our collaborators in NASCAR. We have 3 of them here today. Mike Fisher, Managing Director of R&D, John Bobo, Managing Director of Racing Operations at NASCAR, and Michael Lynch, Managing Director of Green Innovation. So thank you guys very much. Yep.